That seems to be working. Next step is let's get a copy paste for this beast. Studio. Copy that. Oh, is this thing on? That just sounds funny when you say it. Oh, is this thing on? All right. That one's closed. I think that one's going. All right. So live chat here. Let's see. Ooh, that's me again. Ooh. And fade into the darkness and then come back into the light. Oh no, I did that backwards. Woohoo! There we go. All right. Got a question here. Would you be able to explain the last paragraph of the spec called Reading and Dealing with Input? All right. Step one, pull up the spec. Let's get that done. All right. Give me a second here. Last paragraph in the spec. Okay. Turn the audio on this thing so I can hear pings. There we go. Project 3. All right, I'm getting there. Give me another second. Reading and dealing with input. There we go. Okay, so in reading and dealing with input, talks about this being well-formed. So one of the things that means is there's never any invalid syntax. Every command is well documented on what words you expect to see. And if, for instance, you've got a table that's created and you know that it has 7 columns at create time, then anytime that you run an insert command, it has to be done in groups of 7 because it won't be incorrect. So you don't have to worry about using get line to say, let me get this whole line because I don't know, if something goes wrong while I'm working on this, if I read in some improper part, I don't have to then make sure that I can get rid of the rest of it. You can read this in a token at a time just by using the stream extraction operator, which is greater. You can always use that because you know that once you read the word create, then you can follow the rest of, say, the create syntax. Or if you read the word delete, then you know that there's going to be a from coming next, and then a table specification, and so on. So is that answering what you're saying in terms of what it means? Or because the last paragraph is actually like 3 paragraphs under that reading and dealing with input section. Or you're talking about don't write the same code 12 times. Is that what we're talking about? Okay. So forward way to write this code is to have a 4-way split. You say, well, I know that when they give me a delete command, I'm going to be deleting or anything where there's a where that I have to deal with. In that where, I'm going to be reading in a data of some type. And since there's 4 types, ints, bools, strings, and doubles, then you've got 4 branches going on. And then inside of the rest of the where clause, you're going to be saying, am I less than, equal to, or greater than that particular value? So that's like a 3 branch. And so what we're saying is don't put 4 copies of 3 pieces of code in there. Does that make sense? Because you don't want to do it that way. You want to have the 4-way split get you a table entry. So if I've got a table entry in the 4-way split, then I can call out to a function that handles the 3-way split. Because you can't get away without doing the 4-way split. You won't be able to read in a value from the stream without knowing what type of value it's going to be. So you can say, trying to get this value where column. So as soon as you know what column that you're working on, you say, okay, well, I know what type of data is in this column. So if, for instance, we're talking about a string, then I need to have a temporary string. I can see into the string, then take that string and create a table entry. That's what I'm saying. There's no way to get around the 4-way split because you don't know what type of data is coming in. So if they say where column and it's an integer column, then you have to have a temporary int. You read into the int, and then you create a table entry off of that int. Now that you've got a table entry in hand, then you need to pass that somewhere that's got the 3-way split embedded in it in terms of less than, greater than, or equal to, right? And now that we've got that, we can go ahead and handle what portion of the table is going to be deleted or printed or what have you. Does that make sense? Keep flashing because it's bright in here. Yeah, because otherwise you just have tons of duplicated code and it's brutal. Then when it gets into more complicated stuff, like better still have the second function create one of 3 different functor types, right? Then you declare 3 different functor types. right? One for less than, one for greater than, and one for equal to. And then you can pass this functor as a templated type. And then you do your delete command, and it's going to delete every row where functor returns true. And so if you build the templated functor to handle that, then that's what the last sentence of it is. It's getting into better still. That one's a little bit more in depth, but if you play around with templating, you should be able to come up with something that makes some sense there. All right. What's next? Oh, we're up to 4. At this rate, I'm going to be an influencer one day. Yeah.
This might be food. I came for food.
Food?
There's supposed to be food right now.
There's a rumor that there's food in the building. I'm busy live streaming, so I can't eat. All right, I need to get at my keyboard here. Aha, new question. Can you show an example of how in place back works with insert into? So in the case of in place back, right, in place back works like pushback does in many ways. But the important part about in place back is you don't need a copy of the thing that you're creating. So if I've got a string, for instance, and I would like to make a string holding a table entry that holds a string, rather than creating a table entry that holds a string and then using that to push a copy into a vector or what have you. The way to do that is to use in place back. In place back does the work of calling the constructor to create the object that you want to put in there. So you don't have to have a copy of the object pre-made. So then you could sort of see in the string from the command line and grab the string that's going to be the next table entry and then do it in place back with the string, which will automatically call the appropriate constructor and build just one copy of the object in the vector, and it's ready to go. Right, so in the insert into situation there, now you're trying to make new rows with obviously new data values inside of them. So since each row is going to go in its own vector, we can reallocate memory for the table. So before the insert into, you've got some number of rows. You get a call to insert into, and it's going to tell you which table, and it's going to tell you how many rows. So right away you can say, well, this thing has got some number of rows, and I'm trying to do an insert 4 more rows. I need to make sure that I've got room for 4 more vectors, because each one of those vectors is what a row is in my 3-dimensional table vector, the data section. So I'll go through, and I can't resize. I can resize. I can resize the table. I can't resize the row. So as I resize the table, what it then does is it creates empty vectors for me, right? So say I've got 10 rows already in my table, and somebody said they'd like to insert 4 more rows. I need to take the outer object, the outer vector, and say, let's resize that vector to be 10 plus 4, 14 size. Now that it's 14 size, it copies over the old stuff into the new memory location. I've got the original 10 vectors, which were the 10 original rows, got all 10 of them in place. Then after that, I've got 4 created vectors, because resize is going to, of course, create vectors for me. Resize is going to give me a default construction on a vector, which is just an empty vector. Now I need to get items into those vectors. This is a great place to say, well, as I'm reading the first row in insert into, every item that I read, I'll in place that back into, table at index 10, because we had 10 rows before, so the new one is at index 10. As I read in those column items and place them back into the row, now I've built another row. And I go to read the second row from the insert into, so now I'm going to be in placing back into the table at index 11, in place back into there, and then we'll create those things in there. Is that making sense to you? Good. Yeah, show is a little bit hard. I'm not really set up for that. We still have to get a whole bunch of stuff together. So we're hoping to get a better setup in terms of being able to do online annotation and code stuff. I mean, I can put it in the live chat here, but that's also not going to be formatted very well for code. I'm gonna sit here looking at myself. I need to shave. I have to shave. I usually shave after the midterm. Got lazy because it was spring break. Can't sit here and look at these live streams of my face with all this hair on it, though. To take care of that business. I turn this into a reality live stream, and then while people aren't asking questions, I could just be shaving, brush my teeth, moisturize. What do you think? It's a good plan? Like I said, I'm trying to get this up to like at least like fives of traffic here, maybe even tens of people watching my live stream. Going to be a big hit one day. One day I'm going to be a big hit. There's somebody new here. Look at that. Welcome. Hi. Hi. Just get to act like a weird grandfather on this thing right now. So you can say it all. Just ask a good question. I can get started on talking about some stuff I know. You can do it. Oh, somebody's here. Who was that? Oh, false alarm. New person? No new questions? You can do it. Just type it. Type it. Type it. So, in case you were wondering, why I'm. Oh, I scared him off. Fish on, fish off. Just. What was that? Okay, for sure. I'm sticking a fork in this thing at 4. That's for sure. Staying here, looking at myself. So I'm trying to figure out. There's like one person on there. Does that mean it's me? Dum dum da dum da dum dum da dum da dum. Oh, there's another one. Somebody's here. I can almost see you. Got a duo. Approve. All right. So, ask me a question. What do you think? Yeah, next time I have to do online office hours like this, I'm gonna bring some work. some work, stuff to do. Hmm. Do 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 do. Do 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 do. Oh, there it is. If we have an existing index for a column for a table, then overwrite it. How do we free the memory that the previous index contained? Well, if you've got the index in a hash table, you can clear a hash table. Just tell the thing to clear itself and then rebuild. That's a straightforward way. I mean, you can do other sort of tricky things if you like. You could have your index function where you're creating. Is it on? Is this thing on? Hey, I think it's working again. It says I can't connect to chat though. I think the stream's live though. All right, so the straightforward way is to just clear the hash table and then fill it in with new stuff. That'll work. You get the vast majority of the memory back. The other way that you can do it, if you want to make sure that it's like as right sized as possible, is in your function that does the generate, you can take a local variable in the generate function, a local variable which is going to be a new hash table or BST or what have you. Take one of those and build the index, and then swap that with the member variable of your table. So then when you exit the generate function, the local variable will be holding the old copy of the index, and it will just go out of scope, and the container itself will clean up the old index. So the real straightforward way is just clear it and fill it. Bit more efficient is to create a new one in a new separate local variable. And you would basically create two local variables, right? In your generate function, you would create a new empty BST index and a new empty hash table index. Fill whichever one was appropriate and then swap both of them. And you don't even have to do ifing going on there depending on what your old index was, your old index type was. So now I can't connect to chat. So maybe you like that answer and I just can't tell. Maybe you've got more questions. I just can't tell because it says unable to connect to chat. Pop out chat. Nothing to see here. We popped out. Restore chat. Still says unable to connect to chat. Testing. Oh, well, I think I'm back in. Did that answer your question, Justin? I think that's pretty good. I think I would probably do the local variables version of it myself. I just create a new one, swap them in. Yeah, I don't know. It still thinks I'm not able to connect to. Maybe it's just going to keep saying that. So I don't know if that answered your question. If there's more you'd like to ask about it or more clarification I can give. Chat something if you're alive. So if you're out there and you can't chat me, remember I said there's also a Google Meet that's open out there. And the link is in the link is currently in the Office Hours help queue over there, or you can go there. I don't know if that just went to the chat. It says I can't access the chat. Who knows? Oh, I see somebody there. Is that you, Justin? Aha. When adding rows to a table with an existing index. All right. Where did that thing go? Come back, you. When adding rows to a table with an existing index, is it a good idea to remove the existing index and create a new one? Well, if you think about the way that those things should be added in your index, the values that are the keys that are the values from the table that are keys into the index will give you a value from the index, which is a collection of table rows where that value is evident in that particular column. So when you insert new rows, since they should be at the end, there's no need to delete an existing index. Simplify that down to adding just one row. Say you've got 50,000 rows and there's 20,000 different values in a particular column. So each one of those things, let's take it even simpler than that. 50,000 rows and there's 50 different values. So inside your index, you're going to have about 50 keys, right? There's 50 different values, 50 keys, and each one of those on average is going to have 1,000 different row numbers that have that value in it. Now, if you add just one more new row and it's one of those 50 values, all you have to say is, row 50,000, index 50,000, is now being added to the end of the collection that has that particular value as its key. Does that make sense? Do we need to build a new index for deleting rows? Yeah. When you delete stuff, it gets really hairy in there. Yeah, you don't want to deal with that. It's a lot easier to just regenerate there. Yeah. Yes, I would definitely just regenerate after a delete. It's just too much work. Because not only you have to remove all of the things that you've deleted, that's easy enough to do. You just remove one key from the index, but then everything that's interspersed with those columns, all the other values and all of the other keys may need to be changed. And you would spend a linear amount of time figuring out which things need to get deleted or saved. So why not just delete the whole thing and spend the same linear amount of time and regenerate? What order would I recommend making the table manipulation commands? Well, start with the basics, like can I create a table? Well, that's the first part. Create a table. Can I quit? Right? You can't really tell if you've created a table until you do a create, insert some stuff in there, and then print. So on the first round of things, I would definitely put create, insert into, print, and quit. And you just, from there, you can see, hey, can I even do this? And it works. All right. After that, you can go to the next easiest thing is going to be delete from, because you can just add the delete from command, and what you already have, create, insert, and print, will let you know whether or not delete is working. So you can continue to add them one at a time after that. Once you've got create, insert, print, and quit done, you've added delete. You can also do a remove. There's no real way to determine whether or not that's happened other than through your own code, or you can try doing a remove of a table and then try to print something from a table, and you should be able to catch a reasonable error message about that table not existing. So remove is about as easy as create. I guess you could put that on the first line too. It's just less easy to see that it actually works from the command line. So throw remove in there, and now you're down to just two items, which is really join and generate index. And those are a bit more work than all of the rest of them, but there it should be pretty straightforward. Generate index can be used with print, generate index can be used with delete, generate index can be used with join as well. If you get generate index done, then join should go pretty straightforward after that. But generate index and join are probably your last two. You when you're doing a join, it always helps to have an index. So if an index is already existing on the column you're joining on, then great. It speeds up your join tremendously. If an index doesn't exist on your column, then no one says you can't create one. So say, hey, I got a join on this column that doesn't have an index. I'm going to run through generate an index, then use that index to do my join. And you can do that in a temporary way. I'm just going to create a temporary joining index, and then I can use it. Will speed up my join tremendously. But that sort of leads you to thinking about how can I write a generic generate index so that I can call generate index to create a true table index when requested of me, or how can I also use the same function to create a temporary index so I can use that to speed up a join without necessarily because if somebody already has an index on the table that you're joining to, but it's not the one that's helpful for you, you're not supposed to get rid of that. So that one should stay there. Then that's why you would need a temporary one. So I think that's the easy way to do it, is to always have a temporary one for your join, just because then you don't have to worry about multiple code paths, where if this is a good one, you can just use the one that's there. So does that make sense? Would I need two indices for both tables or just one? Well, in the join, you're going to be running through the left table and finding where things that are equal to that value in the right table are. So as you run through each row of the left table, you don't really need an index to do that. You can just go through them one row at a time. It's the fact that when you find Chevrolet in row 0 on the left, I need to know where all the Chevrolets are in the table on the right. So that's where the index is really helpful. Then when I get, the next one in row 1 is also Chevrolet, I want to be able to get those in the same amount of time. And the next one is a Ford. I want to go get the Fords like that. So you don't need an index for both tables because you're processing the left table in sequential order, top to bottom. And what I need a BST index to keep things in order. Well, the things you're talking about is the actual keys, the values there. So if you're doing a less than or greater than operation, that's when you need a BST index. But if you're doing an equal to operation, that's when you need it. And joins, let me double check on this. Join command where column name equals column name and print blah, blah, blah. Right. So joins are limited to equals only. So that means you should have a hash table index for that, right? The BST thing is going to be keeping keys in order. So if you wanted to join Chevrolet with everything that was Chevrolet or greater, then you could do that. But this is silly QL and it's simpler than that. And so we're only doing with things that are exactly equal to. So in that case, you would only need a BST index if one was requested by the user. Oh, there's a third person here. So third person, I do not have, for some reason, my live chat is broken over here. So if you're chatting me in YouTube live, I can't see it. There is a Google Meet where you can pop over to the Google Meet and either type or speak your questions over there. Otherwise, this is like a one-way communication. I don't know why it won't. Maybe I am connected. It's hard to say. Oh. Woo-hoo. Woo. So Yeah, we dropped one. One of these days, I'm going to get my channel up to like double-digit followers. I'm going to be really cool. Be a serious 281 influencer. But if you have a question, you could ask a question right now. If you're trying to answer the question through the live chat in YouTube, that seems to be broken for me. It says unable to connect the chat. Please try again later. And I can't tell whether I'm actually sending chats out or you're sending chats in. At least I haven't seen anybody move anything. So if you do need to send me a question, jump over to the Meet, the Google Meet, and there you can either give me text, audio, or audio visual questions. Proffice Hours online. New person. I can see that you're out there. Do you have any questions? See, right up here, it says there's like 2 people. That means me and you. So, you want some help, just type in that little typey thingy down there, or you might have to go over to the Meet. If you swap over to the Meet, there I am there too. Oh, I can see myself in Meet. It's good. Tell me what you think. Tell me what you think. Oh, wow. Tom Hanks has the coronavirus. Can you believe that? Now what? I wonder if Wilson's gonna catch it. Wilson! Wilson! All right. It's just gonna be me weirding out here on YouTube Live. Unless you ask me a question. Then I can talk about, oh, there we go. All right, it says, could you talk a little bit about the structure of the table class? I'm having some difficulty trying to plan and design the data structures I need for my table. Excellent. All right, so on the very first page of the spec, we see a little small section of the cars marketplace table. And it just happens to be divided into sort of like a color and a black and white area. So the table class has got data in it, and it also has metadata, or data about the data. So the stuff in black and white is the actual data from the table. That's the stuff that you need to hold in the data sort of member of your table class. And that is just data, nothing else. It's two-dimensional. It's got a fixed number of rows. It's got a fixed number of columns. Both of those things you have to maintain yourself, but that's pretty straightforward and easy to do. But the black and white stuff, that's the data. Then above that, you see cars marketplace, vendor, model, price, mileage. That's metadata. Cars marketplace, of course, is the name of the table itself. But then vendor, model, price, and mileage, those are all column names. So you're going to need some information about column names, what particular type of data goes in each column. You can see vendors are string data, models are string data, price is integer data, looks like, and mileage is double data. So that's information that can't be held in the data itself. So it has to be stored in the metadata. So somewhere in the metadata, and one or two of the members or some number of the members of your table class that hold metadata, they have to keep track of that. And metadata is not really something you need to worry about in terms of memory. Everybody's got to have some metadata. And what really makes a huge difference is the actual data, the number of rows and columns. That really matters. It's not so much that the metadata, you can have metadata in there 2, 3, 4 different ways, and it's not a problem. It's not a problem. The problem is when I got 50,000 rows in there, it's a lot easier to deal with there. Because you end up with, 50,000 rows, your memory is on the order of 50,000 times columns. That's how much data you're going to have. But your metadata is just constant times columns. So it doesn't really affect you. It's not affecting in the end. Does that make sense about table class? What other questions about table class are there?
Oh, no, I'm just listening to.
Okay.
What's up?
Yeah. So many weeks ago,
Woo, shablam.
that's not a problem. No, I don't want to hear the issue. If there is an issue, it needs to be done properly.
Free testing, fee waivers, emergency sick leave, quarantines, cancellations. Wow. Twitter. What else? What else? Does that clear up the table questions? Is there more questions? I've got more answers. I know things. Oh, there we go. I see that you are here now. Should we use some kind of hash table to map the column names to the different column indices for the actual data matrix? I think that's an option. If you feel like you need it, try it. Like I said, almost nothing that you do with metadata is going to cause memory issues. So if it seems like something that you want in terms of functionality for speeding things up, then by all means, do whatever you need to. As long as you're working on metadata, like I said, it's a constant amount of memory here. So if you got them in a vector and you've also got them in a hash table, and if you got them in a BST or whatever, you know what I mean? Think about this. If I got 50,000 rows and there's 4 columns, then I'm talking about like 200,000 pieces of data. I've got 4 columns and I've got, 4 pieces of metadata about each column. It's like 16 things. That's nothing compared to the 200,000 that I've got in 50,000 rows. So we're always looking at big ends. We're not guaranteed big ends in this case. Obviously, when you create an empty table, n is 0. But your behavior is about how does n affect me in the long run. So I wouldn't stress about that at all. If you want to keep hash tables, if you want to keep vectors or multiple hash tables, even if you've got, like I said, even if you've got those columns in there with information about the columns 4 or 5 different ways, 6 different ways per column, doesn't matter, right? Because it's a constant number of items times the column width, whereas your rows is going to be an n number of items times the column width, and that's really what matters. All right, what else are we wondering here? Philly. Oh, Twitter. Good Lord. Somebody ask a 281 question. Oh, all right. I am down to about 7% battery on this thing. I think we're going to wrap this up in short order. Get any last pressing questions out there? What do we think? Ah, there we go. Oh, that just took a while to update. Sorry about that. It says, can you explain how to think about the use of commands with the where condition? I'm trying to better understand how to check column conditions when indexing down the rows. So the where command or the where condition comes into our print command for one. It also works in our delete from command. And that's really all that we have to deal with, the where command. So as we go through one of those, let's just take print because you should probably work on print before you work on delete. So you've got some existing table with some number of rows. And the syntax is print from table name and giving the number of columns to be printed. And then if the where command is used, it'll be like where column name operator value, right? So to be clear, the print column name is not necessarily, or the where column name is not necessarily one of the print column names. So you could be like print from table name cars marketplace, and I want to see vendor, model, and price, but where mileage is less than 25,000. Guess that doesn't think of anything. Where mileage is less than 50,000. So in that case, what you're looking at is a way to evaluate every single row. So you look at the row and you look in the particular offered column from the where clause, and then you compare the value in that column with the operator of the where clause. So the operator in the where clause can be equals, can be less than, can be greater than. So if you use where that way, you can be like only printing the values from those column names when one particular column meets a criteria given in the where clause. How does that sound? Does that answer your question there? Let's see if this one says it. Yeah, good, good, good. All right, yeah, I'm down about 4% here. If you got another one for me before we sign off, I'll be happy to add that to the list of answered questions. But I think other than that, we're going to wrap it up. The other way to think about the where clause is in a command like print from. It goes print from table name, then that's followed by a horizontal, by a vertical filter, right? Print from table name, and then it gives me n, the number of columns that I want to see, and the listing of those columns. So that's saying pick from these columns vertically. And then the where clause says I'm going to handle the horizontal aspect. Is like, is this a good row to print those three things from? Is this a good row to print those three things from? Is this a good row to print those three things from? And so on. So the where clause is really our horizontal filter, while our n is going to give us our vertical filter. Sweet. All right. Well, have a good one. We'll be back online here with some office hours tomorrow. And if you come up with something in the evening while you're working, come check us out again. All right. I'm wrapping it up. I'm calling this a day. Online office hours. Oh, there's a new person that just showed up. Who are you, person? So you know, this chat thing is kind of broken. So if you type in it, I'm not reading those messages. And if I type in it, you don't get my messages either. So if you want to send me a question, you have to jump over to the meet.google.com. And that link is it's on the office hours queue. And if you can, I don't know what you can see from the chat transcript. I put it on the chat transcript, but that thing is dead. It's just dead. So if you want to ask a question, you got to hop over to meet.google.com. Oh, now there's 4. That's me plus the 3 of you. So if you want to ask a question, you can. But like I said, chat window, that thing is kind of broken. I can't type to it without it. I don't think you can either. So if you want to ask a question, you have to hop over to meet.google.com. There you can either type it in or I think you can send audio, however you want to get a question out there. Wow. Sorry, I just read that the NCAA canceled the tournament. Yesterday, they said there were going to be nobody at the tournament. Today, they said there is no tournament. I don't know what to say. Oh, March Madness is gone. It's madness. Okay. Down to 5. I was up to like 5 people there. I was well on my way to becoming an influencer. Another couple of 5 peoples, and it'd be like 15 people. That's a lot of people for me. I mean, I feel pretty proud about that. And go say at one point though today I got up to 5. I wonder if I can monetize 5 people. Maybe and get enough money to like buy a piece of gum. All right. So it's the chat. It's kind of broken right now. If you want to ask a question, you need to hop over to meet.google.com. I'm about ready to wrap this thing up though too, because I'm short 1 power cord and I'm at 1%. So we'll be back online in the morning doing this again for some more Proffice Hours in the morning. Yeah, that's it. I think I'm signing off. I thought I'd be out of here at 4:30. It's 4:28. And like I said, I'm down to 1%. If I don't sign off now, I'm just going to fall off. So if you've got questions, send them through Piazza and or some more additional online office hours today, tonight, or tomorrow. So long from 281. End.